Welcome to the NHC GOP podcast. I'm Reuel Sample here in North Carolina, where we have declared a state of emergency over public education. A state of emergency, usually reserved for hurricanes, storms, snowfalls, a state of emergency over public education. Here to talk about it is Josie Barnhart and Pete Wildeboer from the New Hanover County Board of Education. Josie, Pete, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for
Mr.
having us.
Sample, I appreciate your time.
Pete, what's going on? This is the zombie apocalypse here. Pete, what's
Oh,
going on with this state of emergency from Governor Cooper?
well, with all due respect to the office of governor, I don't see this as an educational state of emergency. I'll be honest. I think that yes, we all would agree that we want to improve education for every student, all our students, absolutely, 100%. But I see the bills that he has mentioned, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as being very positive, actually improving education for our students. And he's got oh my goodness, this is the worst thing ever, and you have to stop, these crazy legislators from doing what they were elected to do. And boy, I tell you, I just don't agree. I cannot agree with all due respect to his office. I think that we at New Hanover County have made some great inroads to improve education for our students. Again, we're not finished. We need to do more and more and more to do it, and we've all been working very very hard. Ms. Barnhart, myself, and the rest of the board working very hard to improve the education for our students. But state of emergency because we're doing some positive things. Our senators and legislators are doing some positive things to improve education for our students. I don't agree.
Josie, state of emergency. I mean, this is just grandstanding by
It,
by
it
by
is.
a
It's an
governor.
overstep of power to help create fear and instill just a divisiveness that people have said we're tired of politicians just being so divisive. And so rather than having a conversation about the content, about ways that we could potentially, express desire for changes in these bills, what we're saying is all of these together is going to ruin public education. And that's not the case. We have a new committee. It's the legislative committee, and I'm the chairperson for that. And we were able to go through some of the bills, and we were able to talk about some of the ways that we want to focus on how we can improve New Hanover County schools so that we have no priority schools and no failing students. And I'm excited. I'm going to be presenting some changes at the June meeting to change the makeup of the legislative committee so that we can create our own legislative agenda and then advocate better on behalf of our students here in public schools in New Hanover County and for our staff. And so it's really what it is allowing for leadership to step up and share where the concerns are is not a bad thing. And understanding that there is a specific role that education and schools play, and that's to educate our children. And so we need to get back to having the conversations about the content versus just pretending that we're,
This is
it's
some
all
pretty
it's all blown loose.
This is some pretty strong language, Pete, Josie. This is in states of emergencies, governors can take massive amounts of power away from elected officials to put policies in. We saw it during COVID. We see it during storms. Now, let's be fair. Governor Cooper isn't doing a power grab here, but this kind of stuff, this kind of wording is dangerous. Let's talk about his number one goal here. The number one thing that he was pointing out in terms of things that we should oppose is the SB 49 bill that was passed by the Senate on parents' rights. Both of you ran on increasing parents' rights. Pete, what is this bill about?
Well, Senator Lee, Josie, I want to highlight that we were able to go up, as Ms. Barnhart mentioned, up and actually talk to Senator Lee and others about this very bill and how important it is, how vital it is, how positive it is. Parents are our partners, and they need to be our partners in educating our children. It shouldn't be the school does it. It shouldn't be the parents do it. It should be everyone working together. And that's what this bill is all about: is bringing everyone back together so that giving parents back, a certain amount of rights, that they need. I mean, we've done some of the same things here. Ms. Barnhart also sits on our policy committee, chairs that, and has done some great things in that area too to bring parents' rights back into the forefront. We need to be, as a former principal, we always worked very closely with our parents. It's vital. Who loves their children more? Teachers definitely love the children that they work with. Principals do, but who loves them more than their parents? And their parents want their very best for them. So we want to work hand in hand with our parents in New Hanover County Schools, but it needs to be a statewide effort to work together. And that's what this bill does: is it works together, helps us to see and to work together, and to really look at all the various pieces. If anyone has not read that bill, State Bill 49, I would advise you to do so, because it's once if you take the time to look at the things that the governor has brought up, and you say, my goodness, this is good. This is a good thing for our students. But he's adamantly opposed to it, obviously.
Josie, one of the things that you ran on was parental bill of rights, but you also ran on the whole idea that it can't be an us versus them. Is that as Pete said, is that it is all of you working together? Why do Democrats fear this whole idea of parents getting involved in the school district? And how are you encouraging that kind of cooperation here in New Hanover County?
And I appreciate the question, Rule. So for me, that was something that I was frustrated with because that's my background. Is I'm an educator and I'm a mom, and my kids are in the public school system, and so understanding that we should be included, we should be informed, we should be able to have access. Things like this are just common sense things that New Hanover County is absolutely taking the steps. One of the things that we've recently passed as a board is we have taken basically I wouldn't say the exact verbiage of the Parents' Bill of Rights with the surveys, but very similar. We created a window viewing that parents have access to view any surveys that are given. We have expanded the protected topics to not just be about federal surveys, but for state and for local surveys as well. And those include mental health, those include sexual content, those include political content, things like that. Just common things that parents might have a red flag about of saying, what are you asking my kids about? Tell me about. And so we just passed that this last meeting that is a required consent in now, period. And then another thing, another form of accountability that we added here locally was we had put in the caveat whatever central office is going to be implementing from the changes of these surveys, it's going to come back before the board to inform us that this is what came out of those surveys. Because I
Hmm.
think that was kind of the loop disconnect that I saw of watching these meetings and subcommittee meetings and having conversations with people, is there wasn't really this full connection of why this was happening and what we were actually doing with it. And so I want to kind of help loop that in. And sometimes people who know what they're doing, they talk to each other a lot, but then they don't dispel the information. And so really these subcommittee meetings that we're able to dive into some of these policies and have these in-depth conversations, we're giving the public access because everything is recorded, everything is viewed. And I know recently too, the suspension policy came up, 4351. And so it was saying to have a person present. And if you look at the policy, it was talking about reasonable attempts, but it was not saying that parents were not being contacted. It very clearly said a point of contact could be a phone call and a conversation with a parent over the phone versus mandating a parent to come to the building. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, well, this provides a bigger picture for me because when the arguments are being said of like, oh, parents aren't involved, and you kind of go red flag is like, we need to have a conversation about this. Like, we absolutely don't need to have a suspended kid and not be contacting parents. And so really just kind of coming full circle about what that looks like. I am very passionate. I would wholeheartedly be willing to openly support Senate Bill 49. Personally, we have not done it publicly as a board, so I can't speak on behalf of the board for this, but there are so many caveats in here that it just makes sense having access to curriculum. And again, with something that New Hanover County is doing, is having that access to curriculum. That's one of Dr. Faust's thing when he came in. He wanted to streamline that all the students, if you were in first grade, were learning the same content. Okay, well, if we're all learning the same content, then we should be able to have access to it and just a universal website. And so that's those are steps. Those are going to be continued things that we need to improve upon and upload and get better. But it's going to be able to support and benefit our students at home, because as a parent, now I have access to the content that my kids are learning, potentially extension videos and stuff of teachers telling me, showing me how they're teaching my kid, and then I can support them with their homework at home. So this is really going to be a great thing in a partnership and rebuilding that trust and transparency that is just common sense stuff that we need to focus on.
Pete,
And if
you've
I
been
could
doing
add
this
to
a
that
long
real
time.
quickly, I was just going to add real quickly that that was one of the few things I was able to do in my first 2 years was actually get the curriculum put up on the website. So the parent, because a lot of parents would reach out to me and said, how can I find out what my child is learning in class? And so we did get that put on, with the old board, and so it's a good thing. And I think as Ms. Barnhart said, I think the more transparency we can have, the better off we are. Parents need to know what's going on in their school. And we've said time and time again, we've asked them to reach out to the schools, but it is a two-way street. I mean, parents need to be informed also. And that's the same kind of thing with the board. We've done things like having town halls, and again, we're going to say it every time. We'd love to have more participation by parents and community members at those town halls, or different things. I think we may actually look at the July meeting and do a different format. But we just really do want to hear from parents, and we want to be able to have those open conversations about
And
important things.
Melissa and myself, we've both brought up the idea of interpreters. And so having
Mhm.
Spanish interpreters, deaf interpreters.
Nice.
And so that's something that's great about YouTube is that it is easily translated. But then we talked about the new call to audience format of potentially asking if I needed an interpreter, could the county provide that for me? Because we know when we talk about barriers to learning, that's the things that we should be discussing. It should be, okay, well, here's a disconnect. Well, what is it? Well, I don't speak Spanish, but I have a student whose parents only speak Spanish. Well, I don't speak Ukraine, but I have students who speak who I don't even know that, but bad example, but or Arabic or whatever it is. And so acknowledging the fact that we do have a variety of needs with our community, and so understanding with the most feasibility that we can, breaking down those barriers.
Pete, you've been doing this a long time. Uh, I won't say how long, but
Yeah.
you probably started when parents were involved in schools. I remember going to
Hmm.
school, and uh, you got in trouble in school. It was worse going home
Oh, absolutely,
because
100%.
and you brought your report card home to get signed. If something happened at school, your parents were all over it.
Hmm.
And you have seen this cycle where parents are more and more isolated from their kids. And now we're seeing a cycle where parents are getting back involved with their kids. What has been your experience with the parents here in New Hanover County as this control, this involvement comes back in? Are they responding well to your initiatives both here in the county and at the state level?
I would say absolutely. I think and I don't think the pandemic was very good for much of anything, but I think the one thing it did bring out was parents became more and more involved because they had more time. They
Hmm.
saw what was going on. They were wondering what was going on. So it did bring them a new insight that they were able to see and wonder and find out. Which I think is that that's about the only thing I can say good about the pandemic. But that was a very good thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I really think it's vital. I think parents are a lot more involved. And I agree with you 100%. As a young man myself, back in my day, we were boy, I tell you, if I got in trouble, my dad and I had a serious conversation. But then as a teacher and then later as a principal, there were some parents that were like, yeah, he's yours or she's yours. Well, you take care of him at school, and I got I'm working my job or whatever else. And there is a fine line that a lot of parents have to, especially single parents, may have to run between taking care of their children, and so there has been
Yeah.
more and more emphasis on the school taking a lot of that lead. But I think now we've really seen that, as you say, that circle come back where parents are very involved, very concerned. Of course, yeah, I don't think there was ever a time they didn't want the best for their children. But it's also a matter of rebuilding the trust.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Parents, when I was a child anyway, I can say that as you said, if the teacher said it, it was the truth, and that was the end of that story. And there's been an erosion of that trust over the years, and I think we're taking some very firm and important steps to rebuild that trust. And it's not something that's going to a light switch turns on and it changes in a day. But I think we need to do everything we can. I think this bill, Senate Bill 49, is a big part of that. I think it's a vital thing to say, parents, you are important. You are, a vital link, if not more, in the education of your children. And we want that partnership. Going
Yeah.
back again, just real quickly to my time as principal, boy, I tell you, if we didn't have our parents and their involvement, we would not have changed that school. Was not a successful school when I took it over, and I had very little to do with changing it around. The teachers were phenomenal, but we did reach out to our parents and got a lot of support in a lot of ways from parents, whether it be tutoring, whether it be financial, whether it be whatever it was. And that's what we need. We need that partnership across the board in every school. And just one other quick thing, and I'll let Josie speak. But it's amazing just the difference. I've been at every level from pre-K all the way up to early college, and it's just amazing the difference. It's almost like hands. Elementary parents are extremely involved, and they have been for a long time. Middle school, you start seeing that. Hands off, hands off, hands off. High school, yep, I think they're in school today. I'm not really sure, that kind of thing. And I think it's important for parents to realize that they are important each and every day at every level. It really is. Whether it's just calling the teacher and checking in with the teacher at the high school level, or going to the parent conferences, and I'll be honest, as a former coach, we also had times that teachers and parents going to ball games. That you can see the difference in a child. The way they carry themselves on the field or on a court because mom and dad were there, or their teacher showed up to pat them on the back and took an interest in them. So, I just had my son graduate from medical school, and I'm bragging a little bit on that, but he was. I think he would have been mortified if we hadn't shown up to his graduation. So, parents, please understand you are important to your children uh, every day, every day.
Josie, Josie, I'm going to move on to another bill that's coming up, and that one that we were just talking about was Senate Bill 49. It's passed the Senate. It's got to go through the House, and so please call your local legislatures and tell them to get that thing passed. But the next one that is on the list, and it's being opposed by the governor, is House Bill one. I'm sorry, my glasses are going. My House Bill 187, where it talks about equality in education, and it's basically saying that uh, all persons are equal and shouldn't be taught that one group is worse or better than the other. There's more that's going on in that. We're basically
Right.
talking about critical race theory and other things that are going on. Josie, can you talk about House Bill 187 a little bit?
Yeah, and to kind of cap up 49, I feel like the mutual respect is what the premise of most of these bills we're discussing tonight is reestablishing that mutual respect of understanding that parents have boundaries, understanding that teachers have boundaries, and just clearly defining the framework so that everybody's on the same page. And so the fact, a weird world that we live in, the fact that this is controversial is crazy. But I brought this up because in the summer of 2021, the state NCDPI changed the standards for history. And what they did, and it passed by a very slim margin, it was about, I think, 53%, it passed the change. And the standards became subjective. And when you have subjective interpretations and subjective teachings of history, rather than saying, teach about this content, teach about this war, teach about this whatever, you're saying, teach about a time when a battle, created a change in your state, whatever. So then you could pick what battle that looks like, what revolution, whatever. And it became anytime you allow for interpretive teaching, what you're doing is you're opening the door for stepping over boundaries. And so this spawns from I would love to say the majority of teachers are good people and who are accountable. But then you do have people who are willing to push the boundaries and who are willing to be those activist teachers. And this one allows us to redefine and reestablish what is your role as a teacher. You're allowed
Mm.
to have your own personal beliefs. You're allowed to have your own religious beliefs, your political beliefs, whatever you feel necessary. But bringing it into the classroom and sharing that as truth for your students should not be allowed. And that is what this bill, I think, essentially does. It says, we're not going to sit here and pick apart different pieces. And I used history because I know that's been prevalent in my mind. I'd love to see those standards change back, but I digress. But it's just laying that groundwork of what the expectation is for you as a classroom teacher. And then it also tells parents that when you are hearing and receiving content from your students that don't lay this framework, then to have that framework to say, I'm a parent, but I'm frustrated with this teacher because they're overstepping their boundaries. And I think that's kind of what Senate Bill 20 or 49 was kind of doing as well, is saying, parents, this is the groundwork. So when you see something that shouldn't be happening, you're allowed to speak up and say something, and you're not going to be penalized for doing that. Your child shouldn't be targeted for, objecting to a course content or something. So again, this is one of those bills that I find it um, I'm a little bit dumbfounded that we even have to just come to this of just reelection, but it's because there has been people who have utilized their position in the education realm to push their belief system, and we should not be allowing that. As far as accountability piece, as us as Board of Education, as our central office staff, as they're laying, we need to set that clear expectation, and I think that's something that we're trying to do here in New Hanover.
It's a state of emergency, though, Josie. It's a state of emergency. Pete, did we really have teachers trying to teach the idea here in New Hanover County that one group of people is better than the other, or one group of people automatically oppresses another group of people, even though they don't think they're doing it? And what have we done to stop that?
Well, have we? Are there any teachers that are doing that? I'm sure there are. We've had our superintendent say that we're definitely not teaching that. We're not teaching that. We look just to our south, and we look at Brunswick County that passed a policy saying we will not teach this. So, we've had two bills in front of the governor prior to this bill. Prior to 187, that the governor vetoed. So obviously, it is happening in the state of North Carolina. Um, what happens in the school building ultimately, as a former principal, I've said that 4 times tonight, but ultimately it's in the hands of the principal. So the principal, the buck stopped in my office, and ultimately it stops at the superintendent's office, but it stops at the Board of Education. So one of the things that we do is we talk to principals, we talk to educators, we hear from parents. I've had parents reach out to me that at this such and such a school, this is going on, and I don't sit on that. I go through the proper channels. I share it with the superintendent. I share it with the principal, and then I wait to hear a response. So it's also not a situation. A lot of folks will, you give it to the superintendent, and I'm not saying that that's not happened in the past. I can't speak about other boards, but this board, I can say, we do. We have a procedure that we hear back, and then we were able to follow up and say, what in the world, if it continues to go on. I've not heard a lot of it, but I have heard some. I'll be honest, especially at one particular school, and the superintendent and I had a long discussion about what was going on at that school, and I have not heard any more recently about that situation. So, am I gonna say it absolutely is not happening in any school? No, but it is something that we are looking at. This bill attacks it, and looks at it. We as a board are looking at it, and we're not sitting on our thumbs saying, "Well, it's not happening." We're trying to make sure it doesn't happen, but we have a lot of schools, so we again reach out to parents. If you have a problem, you have concern, please reach out to the Board of Education. Please reach out. I would say first, please reach out to your principal. Reach out to the teacher. Say, hey, I have a concern about this. If you don't get the problem taken care of at that level, then reach out to the superintendent. Then reach out, if again you're still not getting any satisfaction or any answers, then bring it to our attention, and because that's what we're going to do is we'll bring it back to the superintendent. But please understand, it's not a situation that we give it to him and say, oh, that's good. We do follow up and try to make sure that there is that is not happening. And on top of that, we do try to find out if there are answers, and that way that we can follow up and make sure that we do our job.
The other thing that the governor is asking us to oppose in this state of emergency is this whole idea of electing the statewide, you can call it the statewide school board, is that
Mhm.
currently the school board is appointed by the governor. And what he is saying is that by making this an elected position, it's putting politics into a school board, when in reality, politics are already in the school board. Josie, what's going on with this particular bill?
So this is interesting. Part of my campaign, I passed out North Carolina Constitution and tried to learn more about what we're ingrained in. Because coming on and being a member, defending our Board of Education, I need to know what we're stand for. So in our North Carolina Constitution, it says that the governor appoints the 11 members to NCDPI, essentially. And so I think everybody can say in general, in the last few years, politics has become more divisive, and so it might have not been an issue 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that the governor appointed people, because you might have kind of well rounded people to the appointments. But during the pandemic, the narratives coming out of the people who were saying, my kid's struggling, and then you being called selfish, or you being called, not caring about your kids or not caring about other people. And seeing and openly saying that this system is not working for my child to be educated, it created a lot of hardships on individuals, a lot of hardships on families, good, hardworking families who are doing their best to provide for their children. And so I think where this is spawning from is understanding that that is a lot of power for one person to decide the 11 makeup. And there is one elected official on the NCDPI, and it happens to be a Republican at this time, Catherine Truitt, and 11 other individuals Cooper appointed. And so my question would be this, Rule, is if we're trying to take politics out of it, if the tables are turned and we have a Republican governor, which I hope will be happening very soon, um, would we be okay with, would the other side be okay with that? 11 of Republicans are going to be changing the way of public education. And so what I think this is trying to do is an attempt to balance, because when you have a lot more eyes on a set of individual, on a set of elected, a set of appointed 11 people, then you're going to have some diversity, you're going to have some maybe arguments, if you will, of who that's going to be versus it being a sole person in charge of it. And so I am excited that this is at least a conversation, because it definitely has been a very touchy point, especially with parents like myself that had small, I mean, it doesn't matter what age your kids was. I remember meeting somebody, she was checking me out in one of the stores, like my cashier, and she said, "Are you Josie Barnhart?" And I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "I just want to say thank you so much. I graduated during COVID, and I remember hearing you on the radio standing up for the chaos that I was assuming, like, my senior year was stolen from me, and I was so frustrated by people making decisions that were hurting me individually. And I was just dumbfounded. I said, "Well, you're welcome. I'm going to try my best to continue to stand up to give kids the opportunities that they deserve." And so I think that's what this bill is trying to put some perspective into, to understand that we do need to have not one person deciding the trajectory of education, but having a group of individuals coming together, sometimes maybe with a very healthy debate of conversation of what that looks like.
And this is House Bill 17, and this is going to be a little bit of a heavy lift, and it's going to be a little bit longer because this needs to go through the Senate, and there's also a change the Constitution of the state. So it's a developing thing, so we'll keep an eye on it. But for all of these things, we need to make sure that we stay on top of our local legislators and let them know that we support what they're doing. The two of you, plus the other two that were elected, were elected in a county that went Democrat for a United States senator. Yet the four of you were elected unbelievably, and I'm a Republican, to the Board of Education, which means that these issues of education, parental responsibilities, curriculum, things that are getting taught go across party lines.
Right.
And so, whether you're a
Common sense.
Republican or whether you're a Democrat that's listening to this, is that something that we are staying on top of? The state of emergency is that we need to keep continuing to educate our kids in a proper manner. So before I let the two of you go, Pete, what are the things that you're working on here in New Hanover County? What's in your inbox that you are working on to get things done?
Well, there's a lot of great things coming down the pike. Number one, we are in budget season, so we're working very closely with our county commissioners, our partners, again, to help educate our students just as well as we possibly can. And that's one thing. We have a lot of things in the legislative arena, which will be coming out in the next weeks and months to come, which we're very, very excited about. Senator Lee has been a big part of a lot of the things that'll be coming out, which will be uplifting our students through the teachers and giving them some new opportunities to advance themselves and to become better at their trade. And that's what it's all about. Is we need to go back to I don't know if you heard me a minute ago, but a lot of this is common sense. It's we need to go back to the basics of education. We need to be the best we possibly can be in each classroom. Put our efforts and our mindsets in the classrooms, work closely with our parents so that we can educate our students, together. Like I say, right now, boy, I tell you, um, I have a big smile on my face because we are in graduation season. Last night, Josie and I were together at the retirements, and we saw some great, great, hardworking educators going into retirement. So, we do have a big need to continue to get the best of the best here in New Hanover County. Our county commissioners have been our partners in doing that, but we need to continue to find new and better ways to educate our students so that they can, go out in the workforce, go on to colleges. It's just a very exciting time of the year, and we just need to continue doing what we're doing and improving as a board, coming together. I met with a person today that has some training opportunities for us. So we need to, become even better as a board. We need to become better at what we do. But the bottom line, where the rubber meets the road is in the classroom with the teachers, with the students, with the parents. So I think we're going the right way. The bus is I'll use that terminology. The bus is heading in the right direction, but that doesn't mean we don't need to continue to improve each and every day.
Josie, you always have something cooking. What's on the front burner of your plans right now?
I mean, I'm really excited about budget season. I'm not going to lie to you because what's great about the school budget is that we have state and local, and we have this endowment, and so we are put. I say we. I am pushing our central office to push full steam ahead on tell them what you need now, because if we get it, you're going to implement it, and when we implement it, we're going to get the results we want to see of academic growth and supporting our staff, all of them, not just teachers. I mean, we have great teaching assistants, we have bus drivers, all of the people that function to make the system entangled. The other cool side of it is the operational side and the capital side. So you hear security, and that is something right now that we're having lots of passionate conversations with our central office, with our sheriff's department, with our local entities about tangible ways that we can change and improve those security things that we can do for the beginning of next year. We've taken those initiatives of having dogs, and we've discussed some wanding, and just the protocols that are in place are good protocols, but continuing to maintain those. So for me, it's going to be continuing to create opportunities. I am passionate about access to curriculum and not putting it on the burden of our teachers, but putting on the expectation of the district. If we are saying this is the expectation, then clearly define it, clearly say it. And so I have also encouraged our board to have some work sessions just to kind of air out the concerns, because we need to say these are valid concerns, and we need to say where are we going to go from here. Because here's the idea is when you have people of different viewpoints, whatever it looks like, and we were all put together by New Hampshire County. So we need to come together on behalf of our students, on behalf of our teachers. And when we do that, we are going to be unstoppable for our students and for our teachers, because when you have a passion and a drive in the same direction, where more opportunities are going to keep coming across the desk. And I'm going to be very proud whenever the budget gets passed and there's going to be more new Hanover County funds coming here to support our staff and students.
We're going to put a link to these bills, whether it's the Senate bills or the House bills. We're also going to put a link to the New Hanover County School Board, Board of Education. That's the backwater in me, folks. I always call it the school board. It's Board of Education. We're also going to put a link up there because it's very important that you help us continue to help our elected officials. If you would go to newhanovergop.org/education freedom and give today, so that we can help keep elected officials who share conservative values of parents in place. So go ahead and check that link out today. It'll be in the show notes. Pete Wildeboer, Josie Barnhart, it is always my honor to talk to both of you. All the best as you continue to serve the folks of New Hanover County. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Reuel. Appreciate it. Have a good night.